Everyone, today's video going to be talking about consistency rules in the funded future space, what they are, how to calculate them, what you should do if you go over, what you should do if you go under your starting balance, other common questions. We're going to cover it all. Stick around.
Gotta get more followers.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about those consistency rules. Before we get to that, be sure to take a look at my website. Been in the funded future space for many a year now, funded by many of your favorite companies and many of my favorite companies, guys, on my website, CanadianFuturesTrader.ca. Links down below. Got all kinds of information. First and foremost, the hottest deals out there in the trader valuation streets from my top companies. You can go to Trader Valuation Deals or the main page. Keep them updated every single day. I have reviews of the companies, the pros, the cons, what they're up to. As rules change, they're updated immediately. Got a free futures course. You want to learn the basics of trading futures. You want to learn more about the way I trade. Some people often have questions about that. And lastly, you want alerts about the latest deals, go to promo alerts, and then you can also explore the rest of the site, talk about software. I wrote a bunch of articles, brokers, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to the topic at hand. So very quick background about me. In case you're new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe. I started trading futures in 2020. I spent months in advance of starting researching futures trading, understanding funded futures programs, trading methodology. I started my YouTube, then I started trading futures, started a YouTube channel later 2020, kind of to show my evaluation progress. I started out just like everybody. Started out with kind of the main players in the game at the time, and believe me, back then the rules were tougher and there was far less companies. So the following year, I started the website, CanadianFuturesTrader.ca, because one thing that was very difficult back then was to find good information, both explaining futures trading, the different techniques, the different software, how to set things up, and just how these trader evaluations worked. It really was difficult. It was kind of a newer industry back then. So I started the website to share information. At some point, late 2021, the free course I mentioned on my site, I created that just again to answer a lot of common questions about futures trading. It's 100% free, nothing for sale on my website. I've passed evaluations with various companies. I wrote in excess of 1 million. I have to admit, I used an old presentation to create this new presentation. I'm up to like 1.8 million now. Nonetheless, a decent amount. And I haven't had a real job since 2007. Real job meaning some type of job where you go to an office or you work from home, but you work for somebody else. I work for myself doing that futures trading. Anyways, guys. Little quick disclaimer. There's a disclaimer at the beginning of the video. Trading's not easy. Most people fail at the evaluations, or if they're trading their own money, they fail as well. So read that disclaimer at the beginning. And this video contains my opinions. Everyone will have their own, especially something like consistency rules, and I know a lot of people don't like them. I'm going to attempt to explain the reasoning and make a case for why they exist, and they aren't that bad, but I'm sure some people will still say, no, I don't like them. And that's fine. We live in a world we're allowed to have our own opinions. So that is A-okay. But just be cautious, futures trading is definitely not for everybody. So another quick overview, and I know we're eventually going to get to the actual consistency rules, some examples and all that, and explaining them. There's timestamps down below, by the way, if you want to skip to any specific topic. But for people who are new here, maybe you're just starting to learn about funded futures programs, I always like to do a little bit of explaining just because I know when I started, like I said, it was real difficult to find information. So hopefully this will help somebody. So there are companies out there, there's several of them, who will provide the capital for you to trade in the futures market. But they don't just hand this out. You have to pass an evaluation. You have to show you have some aptitude in trading. Now, in the days of old, these would be referred to as prop trading firms or proprietary trading firms. Of course, in the days of old as well, all done in person. Now, these days, for the most part, they're online. I won't say they're all online, just because I know there are a few select out there that do it in person. But for the most part, most of us, myself included, just want to work from home and do this. So the evaluations that these companies put you through are at the 10,000 foot level. They're going to be similar. You have a profit goal. You have a number of days. Actually, we're going to cover that in a second. But they do each have specific rules. So I'm going to harp on this really at the end of the video, but I'm just going to put in the caveat, really read and understand the rules of whatever companies you sign up for, because I would say 9 times out of 10 when I see somebody sign up for an evaluation and fail, and then they're mad, they're like, oh, I didn't know there was a rule against XYZ. Well, if you just read the rules, you would have known. Like, there's not a lot of rules, so it's not hard to, it's not like they're hidden or anything. They're all pretty much the same. They just vary a little bit company to company. So just an example of some of the rules, and I'll kind of touch on kind of what's the norm and things to look for. So number of days needed to trade to pass. So 1 is kind of like the minimum, and I can only think of 1 company out there, maybe 2 that just has a 1-day minimum. Others, I can only think of 1 that has a 15 days. You have to trade for at least 15 days before you finish your evaluation. I would say 5 to 10 is kind of the sweet spot. That's what most companies are at these days. Maximum drawdown. So some companies update it intraday. Some companies update it at the end of day. It's kind of a split, I would say. It's kind of 50-50. Some do it one, some do it the other. Be sure you understand what all that means. I don't want to get too derailed here on going into that. Some companies have a daily drawdown amount. So there's a maximum amount you can go, your account can fall down to, but there's also maybe a daily amount that's less than that. Some have it, some don't. Scaling and maximum contracts. So you'll have your maximum number of contracts. Some companies allow you to trade what I call the full clip. Whatever it is. Say it's 15 contracts, you can trade 15 contracts from day one. Other ones you have to scale in, so you have to know that. Scalping rules. Some companies seeing this more and more. Didn't used to see this, but the last year plus, some companies have instituted scalping rules. So maybe minimum duration of a trade, max number of trades you can take in a day. And then lastly, consistency rules, which we're here to talk about. Let's get to them. So what they are. So let's just start with explaining what they are. Sorry, I know there's a lot of words on here. Let me kind of summarize what you're seeing. So the point of a consistency rule is a company wants to see that you can actually trade profitably for more than 1 day. It is very easy to catch a profitable day. One of the markets is just running, you hop on board, you make a bunch of money, and then you think, I should pass for that. Well, we're going to get to some of the common complaints in a bit. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but that's the point of the consistency rule, to demonstrate to the companies that you can actually be profitable more than just 1 good trade. So in order for them to somehow enforce this or see that, they kind of have to say, okay, you can only make, and this is point number 2, you can only make X amount of your profit goal within 1 day. So throughout the presentation, I used $10,000 as kind of the profit goal. So a common consistency rule is 30%. You can only make 30% of your total profit within 1 day, and we'll run through the little example. So more firms are going back to this. When I first started, it used to exist, and it's like a lot of companies got away from it, and then I think they realized people were taking heavy advantage of this and just YOLOing and passing because there was no consistency rule. So I'm seeing it come back a lot more. I'm seeing a lot of questions. That's kind of why this video exists. I'm seeing so many people ask about consistency rule lately. I'm like, all right, let me put together what I have to say about it. So not all companies have it, but a lot of companies are going back to it. So I will say, no firms that I know of will fail your evaluation if you go over it. So let's say, again, and we're going to look at the examples, your goal is $10,000, 30% means you could make no more than $3,000 in a day. You make $4,000. What happens? Well, you don't fail, but what you do is your total profit you now need to make increases, and we're going to run through that math as well. So point being, just know that you're not going to fail if you, in quotes, break the consistency rule, but you're making it a little bit more difficult on yourself, or you're increasing your goal. Okay, so let's just start with a generic example. And I'm purposely not naming any companies in here because the rules change over time. And somebody might watch this video 2 years in the future, and if I made a reference to a specific company and their rule is 30%, but it's changed and now it's either doesn't exist or it's 50% or whatever it is, I don't want to put that kind of in here. So we're just going to use kind of generic terms and a generic percent. I will say that 30% is kind of the common one right now. So basically it forces you to trade 4 days, but let's go through this. So second point, you can make no more than 30% of your goal in 1 day, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so your valuation profit goal is $10,000. So whatever you sign up for, they all have different profit goals. Take your profit goal. We're going to use $10,000. 30%. So 30%, and right now we're just kind of establishing like a baseline of like what's the most you should be targeting in a day. Knowing full well if you make more than that, we're gonna have to do some more math, and you make it a bit tougher on yourself. So 30%, $3,000. So the most you should make in one day, basically $3,000. Now I wrote here, there's some adjustments for this because chances are you're not going to make exactly $10,000 to the penny. You kind of need to make a little bit more to give yourself a little bit of buffer. But for calculation purposes, let's just say our most we can make is $3,000. So let's say you're someone like me, and I fully admit I'm the type of person who goes for the minimum trading days I possibly can. If you can only make 30% a day, that eventually means you have to trade at least 4 like decent days, so maybe you make 30% one day, 30 the next, 30 the next, you finish up with 10, and then you have to finish out the remaining number of days. Let's say it's a 5-day evaluation or 10-day, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to trade those additional days, but you've met the goal at least. Or maybe you say, hey, I'm just going to go for 25, 25, 20, and these are percentages, 25%, 25%, blah blah blah, or 20, 20, 30, 30. Now these could be your goals, but unfortunately the market doesn't always just like hand you money. It doesn't just say, here you go, here's your 30% for today. So, this is just to kind of demonstrate that you need to trade at least 4 decently profitable days. That's how you can interpret the 30%. So keep in mind, you still need to trade minimum number of days. So say it's 10. So that's why I said you really need to make more than, just the very bare minimum to the penny, because, maybe you make 10,500 and you still have 5 days left. Well, you're still gonna have to make a trade each day, and maybe some of those trades aren't profitable, so you don't necessarily have to make, and again I'm kind of derailing a little bit, once you reach the profit goal but you still have days left to trade, again, read the rules of each company. Some companies don't like to see people like scale way down and just do a quick trade. Others don't care. So know what's the situation for each company. Aim for more than the bare minimum pass. Again, if this was me, and again, this is one of those opinions, it's just my opinion, if the goal was 10,000, I'd probably be shooting for like 10,500, just as a rough number, and then that gives me some wiggle room. If I have 5 days left, I can do a quick trade. If it's a winner, it's a loser, it's not going to matter because I have that $500 buffer. So common complaints. This is the one that kind of, I don't want to say it bothers me, I don't lose any sleep, but it's the common complaint that I see people make, and it's my rebuttal. So the common complaint, now I'm just trader X out there. I'm having a great day trading in the markets. It seems unfair. It seems stupid. It seems unrealistic that I should have to stop trading. I made my 3,000, but I'm having an awesome day. It's only 10 a.m. I should be able to keep trading. Well, if you're in the real world, and people say this, I wouldn't stop if this was real world, if this was real money, and you're absolutely right. Now, there's a big problem. There's a flaw in your logic. Again, this might be unpopular, and that's okay, because you're still ultimately going to have to obey the rules of the consistency. The problem is, this isn't the real world. You aren't actually trading real capital, and what you are doing is you're auditioning for the company, not the other way around. You are in a situation where your goal right now is to show the company that you can follow the rules, meet the profit goal, trade profitably, and the reward for doing so is you'll get a funded account after 5 to 10 days, whatever it takes. It's not an unrealistic ask of these companies, and I think that's the disconnect. People just feel like I'm trading, I'm having a great day, I should be able to keep trading. But you need to take a step back and realize, one, you're not really trading money at this point. You're just trading a sim account. 2, your whole goal is to pass an evaluation. Your goal is not to make as much money as you possibly can. Keep that in mind. And then people also forget why the consistency rule exists. You have to, and this is where I don't have a problem with consistency rules. You have to appreciate the fact that the firm only wants to partner with traders who are good at trading, can actually demonstrate they are profitable traders. If a company just said, hey, go for it, if you make all your profit off one trade, great. You get a home run trade and you pass. Thing is, they have other than that one trade, they have no history on how good of a trader you actually are. So I never had a problem with consistency rules. The reality is you still need to trade a minimum, let's just say it's 5 days. You still need to trade, 5 days in total anyway. Use it as a challenge and an invitation to really demonstrate that you are good at trading, not that you can just have one good day. And like I said, at the end of the day, you just kind of have to accept it. I mean, there's no way around it. If that's just kind of how it is. So I would encourage people to much more look at the situation as, here's the framework, here's the rules I need to abide by. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, it means I shouldn't make more than $3,000 a day and blah, 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 and my trailing drawdown, all the other stuff as well. Okay, and I'm going to trade for 5 days. And after I'm done and I pass, then I get an account. Fantastic. So just accept it, prove you can actually trade. And then I wrote down here, once you're funded, you can go wild, make as much as you want. I put a little caveat on this. With most companies, again, I don't want to name names because rules change, and the company I'm thinking of changes their rules a fair amount. Not necessarily in a bad way, but they do have something of a consistency rule on the funded side when it comes to withdrawals. So, no, again, this is read the rules and understand what you're getting into, but I will say that's only one company. Most companies, you can go wild, trade your heart out once you're funded, and make as much as you can. So, there you go. That's my 2 cents on it. Agree, don't agree, that's fine, because ultimately I'm just a guy making videos trying to pass along the information, and you are the one, and I've been the one, who has to kind of play by the rules, and complaining about it isn't going to get you anywhere, so you might as well just play by the rules. So we already kind of did this math, but I kind of want to go through the example of, okay, day one, you're just starting out, what's the consistency rule, kind of put in your mind where you need to go. And then what happens, the next 2 slides will be what happens if you go into a loss and what happens if you do make too much. And I think that's where people have the most questions. So we'll run through this quick. Goals 10,000, 30% consistency rule. Again, that's pretty standard for companies that have it. Some have a 50% rule. So really just, you could have 2 like good days. But anyways, so the ceiling is $3,000. That's kind of the most you want to make in any given day if you want to keep yourself on track to reach the goal, but kind of push it to the limit of the most you can make in a day. So keep it in mind as your maximum. Like I said, you're probably going to want to make a bit more. So maybe, my goal would be 10,500. I'd feel pretty comfortable if I got to that amount. So really, if you made a little bit more than 3,000 and, maybe you make 3,050, it's not a problem. Again, you don't break any rule by going over the amount. It just changes what your ultimate goal is. At the end of the day, whatever your total profit is, no one day can be more than 30% of that profit. So keep that in mind. And now let's go to the next slide. But I think the original point is here, just have in the back of your head, the most you want to make in one given day is roughly $3,000. Okay, so now let's talk about what happens when you go over. Because I see this time and again. They're in a trade and weren't really keeping in mind how much profit they already had or whatever, whatever the reason is. They didn't know the rules and they stumbled on it after the fact. They made $4,000 in a day. Same original parameters, like $3,000 was kind of the target, the most for the day. They make $4,000. What happens? And it's day one, let's just say. So no company will fail you, so you can rest assured, at least right now, I should put that caveat on it, right now, and I've never seen a company in the past fail someone for going over consistency, just so you know that. But, again, read the rules. No one day can exceed 30% of your total profit. That's usually kind of a generic wording of how consistency rules are worded. So all you have to do is recalculate what your new goal is. So very simple math, guys. Whatever amount your biggest day is, in this case it's $4,000, divide it by 0.3, it's right here that we're looking at, that equals your new goal. So here's an example. You made $4,000 day one. Divide it by 0.3. 13,334, again, I've rounded up for the cents, is your new target. You would have to, your total profit for the evaluation would have to be this amount in order for $4,000, says it right here, to be 30% of this new target. So you took your goal and you moved it from 10,000 up to 13,334, if that makes sense. So there really is an incentive to not do that. I mean, when you make more money, you're not proving yourself to the company any better. All you're doing is making it a little bit tougher. You're stretching the goal like to even higher amounts. So by making that extra $1,000, like instead of making 3,000, you made 4,000. You've now moved your goal from 10,000 to 13,000. And some people say, you know what, I don't care, that's fine. I'll just make a bunch the rest of the days as well. And so be it. You do what you want to do, but I'm just letting you know how to calculate it. So evaluation not lost, but you've moved the goalposts a little bit further away. I will say, and I didn't write it here, I wasn't going to say it, but I will say, if you're still within the day, let's say it's day one and it's only lunchtime and you've made $4,000, you realize, oh shoot, I made too much. You can, and one strategy people take is they will then just try to lose about $1,000, get themselves back to the original kind of ceiling amount, just because, once the day is done, it's in the books. Like if you end the day at $4,000 in profit, that's what you ended the day at. But if it's only lunchtime or whatever, and you can still punt off a bit of that money and get yourself back down, it is a strategy some people use. That's completely up to you what you want to do. You definitely have that option. So another kind of different situation is some people fall below the starting balance. I didn't put an account size on here, but so your same parameters in terms of like your goal is 10,000, but let's say on day one you lost 2,000. So you end the day 2,000 below your initial starting balance, not the best day. Well, some people say, well, what's the consistency rule now? Because, I feel like I should be able to get back to the starting point easily. The rule doesn't change. No one day can exceed 30% of the total profits. So you lost 2,000 your first day. You now have to make 12,000 to kind of reach that minimum of 10 grand in profit. You still cannot make more than 3 grand in a day. I mean, just based on the original parameters. So that's not so bad, right? That's not too bad. But what happens if you really dig yourself a nice hole? So they really, they lose a bunch. Maybe they have 2 losing days. Maybe they just have a really big 1 losing day. They don't blow their account, but they get right down to that minimum, So common complaint. People will say, well, I don't think it's fair. I can only still make 3,000 a day. Like now I have a hole to dig myself out of, and I still need to make 10 grand. A little bit of tough love from CFT here. That's tough. Again, it's the rules. Like it's not, you're the one who dug yourself a hole. And again, you are auditioning for the company. They shouldn't give you some special allowance because you dug yourself a big hole. Because a lot of people say, well, I should be able to make as much as I want to at least get myself out of the hole. Well, no. I mean, that's unfortunately not how the evaluation works. The company is evaluating your trading. If you dug yourself a big hole, you're already, you're not putting your best foot forward. So same logic applies. If anything, having a consistency rule and digging yourself a huge hole, you really do put yourself at a bit of a disadvantage because, the most you can make now is 30%. And I know, I've been there. I know what mind games that plays with you when you're in a big hole. You just want to get out of it as fast as you can. There's something about being on the red side or the green side of the starting balance. So I understand it, but I also understand why the rules are in place. So I just want to say that just because same thing, I see people complaining about it, and I'm just passing on information and kind of giving a practical approach or idea to this. I understand why the rules exist. Hopefully you read the rules, and that's just the situation you're in. You're going to have to kind of play by the rules. So final points. I mean, this is again just I've been through a lot of evaluations with a lot of different companies over many years, and I went through it all. I started out, you feel like you're the pro trader day one. You have like a great day, all that stuff. I've also blown plenty of evaluations. I understand the frustration. I understand the revenge trading. Everything I see people talk about, I've done, I've experienced it. And over time, fortunately, got a lot better at it. Nonetheless, evaluations aren't long. They're 5 to 10 days typical. So don't, it's a week or 2 weeks. It is not a big period of your life. Just, enjoy the ride. It's 5 to 10 days. You can live by the consistency rules for a week or 2 to pass. Stop complaining about them. Just be like, all right, here's the parameters. I'll play by them, and then I'll get my funded account, and I can probably go wild. Now, I very much focused on the ceiling, right? That 3,000, that 30%. That's kind of the ceiling. I'm not saying you should do that. I mean, I'm saying that's the most you can make. I mean, we're talking consistency rules here. I'm not pushing people to say you should make the maximum each day. It's just to give you a sense of what that ceiling is. A lot of people have a more kind of spread it out idea when it comes to their trading. Let's say it's a minimum of 10 days. They'll just take the goal and divide it by 10. They're basically trying to make 10% per day. And that's totally fine. I mean, do what works best for you. So I just wanted to make that clear in case anyone felt like I was saying like you have to make the 30%. I mean, hopefully that's abundantly clear. You don't have to. It's a ceiling. It's not a minimum or a maximum. Well, it is kind of a maximum, but hopefully you understand that. And actually, I just kind of explained what I said here. It's a ceiling. It's better. I mean, honestly, my opinion, again, someone who's been through a lot of these, passed a bunch, has a lot of accounts, you're better off to spread your accounts. I mean, keep in mind, you've got 5 to 10 days you need to trade. So there is zero harm in just trying to spread it out a little bit more. Don't shoot for the minimum number of days, but to each their own. And again, hey, I may full well be a hypocrite saying that because I'm definitely someone who, goes in, guns, reads the rules, goes, okay, what's the most I can make every single day and pass this thing, and I go for it. So completely understand that, although I do realize too that that's probably not the best approach for everybody. And last point, and this is where I said at the beginning, if anything, even consistency rules aside, just read the rules of each evaluation. At a high level, they're similar. At the discrete, looking at each company, they're different. The number of days, the things we talked about, the max contracts, the trailing, is it intraday, is it end of day, what's the consistency rule, all those things. What are the payout, structures? There's so much to know. There's so much to know, but there's also not that much to know. Like, there's really not that many rules to pass an evaluation. So understand each one, and this is where I wrote, many accounts could be saved. I see people every single day out there in Discords and wherever else saying, I blew my account because I didn't know that there was whatever rule, an intraday trailing. I just assumed. No, you can't just assume. You need to know the rules of each evaluation. So really encourage you to dig in, learn what you're dealing with, put your best foot forward, trade those 5 or 10 days, pass the evaluation, and then move on to the promised land of funded accounts. All right, guys, lastly, contact info. I already showed you my website at the beginning, CanadianFuturesCharity.ca, links down below. I've got articles, got the free course, got the reviews, got the deals and discounts, and not just for Canadians. That's another question I've gotten in the past, like, is it just related to Canadians? No, it's worldwide. Be sure to check out my website, sign up for the email alerts if you want to be the first to know when there's a new hot deal out there. I definitely have been around long enough to know who the great companies are, the so-so companies, and the ones I would completely avoid, and believe me, there's several out there, unfortunately. And the discount links and all that stuff's in the video description, or just go to my site. Always has like the very newest, the latest, the hottest, the greatest deals, discounts, promos out there on the trader valuation streets. Guys, if you're stuck in this long, I want to thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, because then I'll see you in the next video.
You